Hello, and welcome to a first episode of Antidote News. I'm here with Alekos Filini,
Hi, everyone.
and we are primarily going to talk about the biggest news this week, which is the New York Times article that names Adam Back as Satoshi Nakamoto. Before we get into that, though, Alekos, I think it's your first time on the Antidote podcast, so perhaps you could introduce yourself briefly.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it brief. I'm mostly an engineer now trying to become a CEO. I started in Bitcoin in 2017. Initially, blockchain labs, so it was like research mostly on Lightning, just kind of playing really with Bitcoin. Then I did a year at Blockstream, so this is going to be interesting since we're talking about Adam Back. Then I started a project called BDK, which is like a library to create Bitcoin wallets, which is pretty widely adopted now by a bunch of even big names. And then I created this startup called Portal. We're iterating through a bunch of stuff. Started with an hardware wallet and it didn't really work out. Now we're trying a different angle with an app, more like an identity app based on Noster. I guess this is the short version of my career in Bitcoin, but I've been around for a while.
Nice. So extremely well placed to name Satoshi.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to do. We're going to identify him here and now. So maybe to summarize, we were just talking about it before, but the article in the New York Times essentially makes the argument, having gone through a decade's worth of cypherpunk mailing lists and sort of libraries and discussions led by Adam Back, and then using stenography, compares them to Satoshi's writings and essentially concludes it must be Adam. The journalist is at least honest in terms of there's no smoking gun, but he does make this allusion that Adam made a slip of the tongue in El Salvador and accidentally spoke as Satoshi in conversation, although I won't lie, it looks a little bit circumstantial to me. But this is everyone's favorite Bitcoin game, like who's Satoshi? So maybe let's start there. And do you think Adam Back is Satoshi?
I don't. I'm gonna maybe put out a disclaimer first. I haven't read the article, so it's gonna be an interesting conversation. And I mean, as I was saying, I've been in Bitcoin for a few years, and there's been a lot of those with Satoshi and Craig Wright and all this kind of stuff. My personal opinion is it's better to leave that at rest. Like for me personally, I don't want to start digging into that. I don't really want to know with Satoshi.
It's Craig.
Yeah, obviously it's Craig, but we don't want to say it, right? So yeah, this is how I'm getting into this conversation. What I can bring is I know a little bit Adam, I know a little bit Bitcoin. But yeah, for me, I think it would be better to just let it rest. But obviously, it's like a big. Now Satoshi would be like a multi-billionaire, so it's a big mystery to be solved. So it's natural that people want to go and dig into this and want to find Satoshi and want to, find out who he was.
Yeah, I completely agree with the Bitcoin ethos, and generally in anything of this nature, you need Satoshi to remain anonymous.
Yeah.
It's better for Bitcoin. A money without a leader is clearly a better money. So may the day that anyone discovers who Satoshi is be in 100 years, long after their death.
Yeah, exactly.
But to indulge in the gossip a little bit, so it's interesting you haven't read the article. I did read it, but the main thing that struck me was there's nothing in there that I think a Bitcoiner hasn't already read or guessed about. I mean, I can remember during the block size wars when the whole Blockstream team were accused of essentially taking control of Bitcoin Core, and there was a huge debate back then around Adam Back Satoshi, isn't he? Blah blah blah. So that I found that the article essentially dredged up 10-year-old news and represented it as new news. Which I don't necessarily agree with the framing, but it's caught the public imagination. You mentioned something in our little discussion earlier as to why you're fairly sure it's not Adam. Do you care to share that?
Yeah. So my counter argument to that is the fact that the first version of Bitcoin was released as a Windows binary, as a Windows kind of software, which I mean, on one end we could say maybe Satoshi was so smart that he outsmarted everyone and on purpose built this on Windows, which is kind of incompatible with the cypherpunk ethos and what you would expect from somebody who frequents and reads through the cypherpunk mailing list. So the typical, the way I would imagine Adam Beck and all these people back then would be hardcore Linux open source guys, all the PGP t-shirt and this kind of stuff. So that doesn't really seem compatible in my eyes with somebody who writes software on Windows, which is, I would see it more as a kind of academic, corporate kind of environment, right? Not some crazy cypherpunk guy. So this is my argument for Satoshi not really being somebody that is part of the world. I would say it's probably somebody who was interested in it and was obviously like following along, but it's not. He probably had like a different kind of main job as I don't know, like a researcher in some corporation or some academic institution.
Mm. Yeah, I read another comment on the reputable website of X that the C++ code, and I can't code, so here I am just wading into stuff I don't understand, but apparently Adam Back's code looks nothing like Satoshi's, just generally, and that I imagine is also, you've got to be a bit of a gigabrain to then just kind of not only like fake everything about yourself to throw everyone off the scent, such that even your code is a bit like not your normal style, and you're going to surely open up yourself to bugs if you're doing that. So a bit of a red herring. I mean, one other part that was brought up in the article was the journalist links the block size debate with the re-emergence of Satoshi. Do you remember that there was the email in maybe 2014 where Satoshi said he was disappointed in Gavin Andreessen and the direction of travel?
Yeah, that was sent from like his actual email address, right?
Yeah. So the journalist basically says, well, Adam was in the middle of arguing this, and then suddenly Satoshi crops up to support his argument and then disappears again, and Adam comes back online. Very circumstantial, very circumstantial. And my memory of that whole thing was that Satoshi's email account had been hacked just before then, and so could no longer be considered a trustworthy or verifiable source at all, and it was completely discredited at the time. And then that's not even acknowledged in the article. And I've always viewed the last Satoshi correspondence as being the correspondence before that, where there was the "I am not Satoshi Nakamoto" when Dorian was fingered. So do you agree with that? Did you have a perspective on it?
No, yeah, I agree. And I also wanted to quickly get back to the C++ code side. I'm a coder. I haven't really read through the code, the original code, but what I've heard about the kind of view, I think it was 0.1 or whatever it was, I've heard it was quite bad. So it was not even like the code organization, the way there were like massive files with lots of code kind of thrown together. That also, in my opinion, supports the theory that it's more of a researcher more than a real programmer. Like the kind of like a software engineer would know how to structure code better, in my opinion, while more like a researcher, more like an abstract like cryptographic researcher that's more high level on the math, on whatever, he probably wouldn't know how to structure code that well. Mm-hmm. So yeah, this is kind of another argument for somebody maybe in academia or some sort of corporate research facility. And the other question on the correspondence, I guess, from Satoshi, I remember reading something about his email being hacked, and I think there were like emails leaked as well. I seem to remember. So
yeah, Malmi, what was his name? Sirius. I'm probably getting his name wrong, but the Swedish guy whose emails with Satoshi came out in court, and there was like a big dump of correspondence.
Yeah, so I also obviously wouldn't trust anything. It was not PGP signed, so the only thing I would trust was if something was PGP signed and not forged signed like Craig Wright did. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I definitely. I mean, I don't think this whole article, again, I haven't read it, but from what I've seen people commenting
you'll know everything that's in there.
Yeah, I don't think it really brought anything new, anything fresh to the discussion. It's just kind of a repackaging things that have been said and debunked multiple times over the years. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's just the first time on this kind of platform like the New York Times with such a massive viewership. So but it's nothing new for people who are in the Bitcoin community.
Yeah, the journalist is also the man that debunked or cracked open the Theranos scandal. So he's kind of like widely regarded. Where there is merit to the article is he goes into who could have been Satoshi. So he starts to narrow down from the cypherpunk mailing list, like the individuals who were really working on, a digital decentralized money. And I think it's objectively true that pool of individuals is incredibly small, even on a global context. You're talking probably at most tens of people, and possibly less than 10. So there's definitely a group you can point to, but some are dead. Some clearly didn't.
Some are frozen.
Right? Yeah, exactly. May come back to see how much they've got. Hope they kept their key safe. I think maybe to get out of the rumor mill and continue on that objective truths, maybe there's a little bit of merit to acknowledging the context of the cypherpunk mailing list and the efforts of Wei Dai, Nick Szabo, even Len Sassaman. What's your take on the origins of Bitcoin in terms of how that was coming together?
That's an interesting question, because again, I never really spent too much time thinking about it. So I don't have like a formed opinion on this. One thing I would say, just kind of, instinctively, without really thinking too much, it's interesting that Satoshi kind of like spent years. I think he said it was like a year building this and iterating over this without saying anything out loud. So I would expect people from that kind of community, which were more used to sharing ideas with each other. I find it interesting that he didn't share an idea first and just kind of built it and only came at the end. So I don't know. I mean, in my opinion, it's kind of another interesting data point for, I would see Satoshi more as somebody who was lurking and like reading the cypherpunk mailing list, but not really like an active member of the mailing list, in my opinion. Or maybe again, also the team theory, I think it makes a lot of sense. So maybe it's a group of people that were part of the mailing list that kind of separately talked with each other and interacted with each other. So I would expect those people to not go, any of those people like Adam Beck, Nick Szabo, I wouldn't expect them to go and build it all by themselves. This is what I'm saying. So either the fact that they didn't publicly talk about it suggests to me that either it's not one of those people, or maybe they talked about it with each other. So then it was like a team, and Satoshi is not a single person anymore, which is also, I think, a credible theory.
There was definitely a lot of private correspondence. So agree that it's odd that in a community that just kind of dumped ideas on a mailing list, it sort of just popped up. I look at it slightly through the lens of, I feel if you ask someone on the street, where did Bitcoin come from, and they've even heard of it, which most people have today, not everyone's heard of Satoshi. And if they have, it's just sort of like, oh, well, this anonymous person just kind of released it out of nowhere. And when, you and I know, and I think a lot of people in Bitcoin know, actually this was sort of like a 20-year endeavor, right? To try and figure out how to build digital money. And the building blocks were pulled together from other people's work. Beyond simply like one individual's like huge epiphany or something. There are some moments of genuine insight, the difficulty adjustment, chaining together proof of work with that. There's a few pieces that were like, ooh, okay, clever, that's how you got it to work. Could have been the work of multiple people. I also lean towards the more than one individual strand of thinking, although with the disclaimer that best that we never know. That being said, where I feel there's a statement out there that Bitcoin was more of a discovery than it was a invention, right? In terms of it was using mathematical principles, and ultimately someone would have got there inevitably. When you say it may have been a lurker, and you keep coming back to the fact that it looks more like an academic researcher, or that the code was bad. Do you give any credence to the Len Sassaman sort of theory that he was very, very heavily involved in it?
I've read very little about him, so I don't know exactly. So it's a name that kind of sounds familiar, but
Okay.
I don't remember where I've read about it. It was like the Belgian
Yes,
guy.
yeah. I'll
Yeah.
do my best to. I'll
Okay.
do my best to recap this. So, Len Sassman, U.S. cypherpunk, did live in Belgium, but born in America. If I've got my facts right, I'm doing this from memory. Was quite close with Bram Cohen and the BitTorrent ecosystem. Went to and very interested in a lot of cypherpunk ideals. Was researching in Belgium, had access to some papers that are supposedly that are cited or used in Bitcoin that are only available in this university where he was studying. There is a tribute to him on the blockchain in ASCII in art. So after he died, so Len Sassman committed suicide from suffering from chronic back pain. I think it was shortly after Satoshi said, "I've got other things to do." And one of the theories out there is that Len, or BitLen as he gets called, was the inventor of Bitcoin and didn't want anything to do with it, and ultimately, is no longer with us. Personally speaking, I still find it hard to believe that one individual came up with this, but there are. If we come back to the stenography, I think a lot of my friends and I would love to believe that Satoshi was British, because wahoo, get another great cryptographer to add to the list. But a Belgian studying there would have access to the Times.
Yep.
Would pick up European and British English turns of phrase versus the Americanisms. But do you give merit to the stenography sort of approach to trying to figure out who Satoshi is?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really kind of the only approach, the only thing we can do. And it's interesting with AI, maybe there's going to be better tooling showing up. And we can probably say Satoshi couldn't think so forward, right? So as much as he definitely was a forward thinker, he probably wouldn't have expected these kind of super powerful tools we have now. So maybe he was obviously trying to conceal his identity, but maybe now we're going to have tools that would allow us to find who he is. It would be interesting. Like, there's a few things I would do if I wanted to find out who Satoshi was, but again, I don't care, so I haven't done it. It would be interesting, again, looking at the code, trying to see if the code is kind of consistent with itself, like if it's all the code is the same style, let's put it this way. Because from like a team of developers, then you would expect different parts of the code to be different. So even if it's one main developer getting contributions, still you would find those kind of patches of different styling, different whatever. So that's something I would do. And also, and this would, again, to kind of prove or disprove the team theory, like whether it was a team or a single person. In terms of writing, I would also go and try to see if it's consistent with itself throughout the forums, throughout emails, throughout the white paper. Even though, it could also be a team with a single person delegated to speaking out to the public. But those would all be interesting, I guess, analysis to make, not really comparing one person to Satoshi, but comparing Satoshi to himself and trying to find if there are, I don't know, if there's anything interesting there, especially in the code, because again, if it's a team of people coming from the cypherpunk mailing list, they would all be more or less technical. So I would expect somebody to come in and say, this is wrong, just let's do this, and then like paste a snippet of code or something. So that's something I would do. And on Len, right, the name. Now that you were mentioning it, I remember reading about it, and I remember that was probably this was many years ago. So again, maybe I wasn't super well informed, but I remember thinking that was kind of like the most credible single individual theory. So either it's a team or if it's a single individual, that seems, I think it's either that or Alfini. And the thing on Alfini was, I remember reading something about the fact that he was developing video games, and there was a game with like a B, like the Bitcoin logo in one of his video games or something like that.
Oh, really? Okay, I'd have to go look that up.
I may be mixing up things, but I remember seeing like this screenshot of a game with like a coin and the Bitcoin logo on the coin. And this was a game developed by Alfini, or he was involved in the development of this game.
Okay.
So that was the other kind of sign where, if it's individual people, I would say either Alfini, because also very coincidentally was like the first person to publicly try out Bitcoin, to publicly help Satoshi
Seems
out.
good. Send me some.
So that you know what we would expect if you you build it under a pseudonym, and then you publicly from the get-go you show you are involved with the project, so it's easier for you, I guess, to conceal the anonymous identity. So yeah, those two seem the most, to me, likely individuals. Or again, the group theory is good, but then the group theory means there must have been disagreement at some point. There must have been divergence, because multiple people have that. So it would be interesting to see if there's any indication of that either in the source code or in the public writing.
Yeah. Delegated proof of work. Someone codes, someone writes. Someone responds to emails. You would definitely find the stenography component of the article interesting. It's obviously summarized for a mainstream audience, but the methodology is not bad. And if you do look at the group theory, there's certainly an argument out there that Back was involved in a group. Although like as others in Bitcoin, I don't believe he's Satoshi. I don't believe I don't believe he would have allowed such buggy code to be published. His opinions on stuff that was written on the cypherpunk mailing list in the past that was published was too thoughtful. Although his silence at the beginning of Bitcoin is quite definite.
Yeah, that's also interesting. And I think there's a post on the Bitcoin forum where he says, I'm not Satoshi, and I don't own any coins. And this was even like 2014. So it was like quite, maybe not 14, but it was quite far along, like years after the release.
Yes.
Where he's still, I mean, again, maybe he's lying, right? But publicly saying, I don't own any coins. So it's really taking distance from it.
Yeah. If I look at behaviorally as well, how Back has been over the last decade or so in Bitcoin, one thing that's always put me off, and sorry, Mr. Back, if you're listening, or Dr. Back, isn't it? Sorry, Dr. Back, if you're listening. But he spends an awful lot of time on Twitter talking about the price and trading. And
he's very much into...
Yeah, I find that boring, forgive me. But I also, obviously there's a lot of projection here, but I don't imagine that any individual with a hoard the size of Satoshi's would spend all day trading.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. So the way I see, again, I know Adam, I wouldn't say I know he's not my best friend, but we've interacted a few times.
You can say he's your best friend.
He's my best friend. I'm probably not his best friend. It's a one-way relationship. But I've had multiple chances to speak with him, even like privately in smaller groups. And I remember a few times he was talking about trading, but from a kind of mathematical perspective. So I think the way he sees it as, I have mathematics and this kind of theoretical knowledge that I can apply to markets to make a profit. So I don't think he's like the kind of guy that looks at the price and bets on the price. He's like the kind of methodical guy that knows risk management and knows formulas, and I don't know any of that, so I don't even know what to call them. But yeah, this is my perspective on why he talks so much about price. So he's just kind of a math geek, and he can profit from his knowledge by applying numbers to markets. So I don't see this as kind of incompatible with Satoshi. Also, I mean, if I was Satoshi, I would never touch my coins. So I would be sitting on like billions, but for me personally, I would still think about how to make my own money, and those would be kind of completely out of question. So it's also possible that he's interested in the price, he's interested in trading, because it's like trying to make money for himself, not for Satoshi, right?
Yeah, I mean one thought that occurred to me reading the article was the ultimate way. If you're doing this many head fakes, right? So you use Linux, but for the purposes of Bitcoin, you run Windows, and you give yourself a Japanese name and all these sort of little quirks. I also think it's worth the journalist, by the way, looking into whether or not Japanese individuals, when they learn English, are taught to double space or not. But I have no idea. The ultimate head fake would be to say, "Yeah, you got me. I am Satoshi," and then never produce a private key. Like never
Yeah.
sign anything, because then no one's going to believe you and you just become another Craig Wright, right? So
This is the we're all Satoshi kind of theory, right?
Yeah.
Like if we all come out and say we're all Satoshi, then nobody's Satoshi. So
yeah, I mean, I am Satoshi.
yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. It was quite fun coming up with the whole idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So you were reading the mailing list back then, and
No, I had this brainwave in the shower, and
Okay.
I thought, like, well, what if we did do a decentralized internet currency? And I quickly put some pen to paper and Googled, like, where do people talk about this? And just thought, okay, yeah, quick, create an anon account, dump the code.
yeah,
Yeah.
sounds very credible.
Yeah, it was,
And it's still more credible than Craig Wright, I think, this story.
yeah. So, and I mean, we were a couple of other points because we're nearing the end of our time, but it is curious to me that there's a lot of Britishisms around Satoshi in terms of communication, language, etc. It does suggest to me that it may not have been an American, or at least the mouthpiece for Satoshi may not have been an American. I do find it very curious that it's a British newspaper in the Genesis block. But I don't think a Brit would eat a jalapeno and pineapple pizza.
That's
Would
true.
you think that?
I would agree. Although I mean that seems like the easiest kind of deceive.
Just think of the most disgusting
Theory.
pizza you possibly can.
Yeah. So that's. I mean, I think it could have clearly been joking, right? So on that, I don't really put any weight on the pizza. But yeah, that doesn't sound British at all.
Yeah. Okay. So I think just to wrap things up, a fascinating article, inconclusive in reality.
Nothing new.
Yeah, nothing new either. That's definitely true. As I read through it, what occurred to me was, I've read most of these arguments. They already exist online. The journalist's done a great job collating them all into a coherent narrative, but I don't believe he uncovered anything new. Therefore, you can't conclude anything different. So we're probably in the same. We probably conclude in the same place as we were at the beginning, and always have been in Bitcoin, which is you've got a list of potential people. You have Hal Finney. I think most people's favorite, and definitely had the means to develop something like Bitcoin. You have Nick Szabo, who, I think the real tell there is that final blog post before he goes offline, where he's like, "Oh, I'm working on this digital gold idea," and like BRB. Then you've got Adam Back, obviously, because of the proof of work thing, because of Hashcash. There's definitely some interest there. You have Len Sassaman, who was more anon. Maybe that's more of a tell. And to me, actually, the one apart from the circumstantial evidence that's been written about him, it's also why was a tribute posted to him on the blockchain, like in ASCII art. There wasn't such a tribute for Hal, as far as I'm aware, but there's a very specific block which has 2-bit Len, from the cypherpunks. Cheers,
And
thanks very much.
has anybody done any kind of chain analysis on the inputs to that transaction?
Interesting. I've never looked, probably, but I haven't seen anything. Maybe that's a weekend hobby for us.
Yeah.
I'm surely missing one or two people, but there is a narrow list, and for those who are curious, you can read all about these people, and it's fascinating. But I don't think you're ever going to find who Satoshi is, and we're probably both agreeing on, hopefully never.
Yeah, I mean never in this century, at least. Hopefully, later on it would be nice to uncover the mystery, and then it's just nice to know.
Before I understood anything about Bitcoin, like when I really didn't know, and I had to teach myself a lot over the years to really start to understand things. I used to think, well, what if there's like a line of code that just like someone hasn't spotted? Obviously, it's open source. I was an idiot. But like, what if there's a line of code someone hasn't spotted that when the final Bitcoin is mined, it's like, ta-da, it's me. It just like reveals who it is. Maybe there's going to be a Git request.
Easter egg somewhere.
Yeah, an Easter egg no one's discovered. Anyhow, I think that concludes our first episode of Antidote News. Thanks, Alekos, for coming on.
Thank you so much.
We will speak to you all soon.
Bye.
Bye.